She collapsed in the glass corridor of a billionaire's company, trembling, vomiting, clutching a purse full of pills. At first, it looked like one more tragic story of domestic abuse. But when the millionaire CEO Googled her name, he found a 47 millionaire trust, a suspicious car crash, and a family secret someone had spent years burying. Who would poison a grieving heiress? Who benefits if she never reaches 35? Her loving husband? His mysterious mistress? Or someone much closer, someone with a grudge, a plan, and patience? Tonight you'll watch a slow, surgical betrayal unfold. Whispered instructions, hidden payments, forged evidence, and the single moment a taped confession changes everything. Every clue flips the story, and the person you think is innocent might be the most dangerous of all. Stay with me, because the truth isn't just shocking, it's personal. If you want the full twist revealed, stick around till the end. And if this kind of true crime twist keeps you glued, do me a quick favor, like comment your theory, share with a friend, and subscribe so you don't miss the reveal. The marble floors of Henderson Tech Industries gleamed like mirrors under the early morning light. Maya Sullivan pushed her cleaning cart slowly down the executive corridor, her hands trembling as she gripped the handle. It was 6:45 in the morning on a Tuesday, and the building was still mostly empty. This was her favorite time of day, the quiet before the storm, the peace before the chaos. Maya had worked as facilities manager at Henderson Tech for 3 years now. Most people thought she was just a glorified housekeeper, and she let them think that. It was safer that way. Safer to be invisible. Safer to blend into the background like the potted plants in the lobby or the abstract art on the walls. She paused at the elevator bank, pressing her hand against the cool wall. The dizziness was getting worse. It came in waves now, crashing over her without warning. Her vision blurred at the edges, and she tasted metal on her tongue. When had she last eaten? Yesterday morning? The day before? Maya bent down to pick up a scrap of paper near the elevator. The room tilted violently. She grabbed for the reception desk, but her hand missed, closing on empty air. The marble floor rushed up to meet her, and then everything went black. She didn't hear the elevator doors open. She didn't hear the footsteps running toward her. She didn't hear James Henderson, the CEO of Henderson Tech, shouting for someone to call 911. When Maya opened her eyes again, she was lying on the cold marble with several faces hovering above her. Security guards, the morning receptionist, and James Henderson himself kneeling beside her in his expensive suit, his face tight with concern. "Maya," he was saying. "Maya, can you hear me? Don't move. The ambulance is coming." Maya tried to speak, but her throat felt thick and swollen. She managed a weak nod. That's when she noticed how James was looking at her, proving her, not at her face, at her neck, at her wrists, at the defensive wounds she'd tried so hard to hide under long sleeves and high collars. Her hands flew to her collar, pulling it closed, but it was too late. He'd seen. James Henderson had seen the bruises that ringed her neck like a necklace, the yellowish-green marks that were shaped exactly like fingers. Someone's fingers. Someone's hands wrapped around her throat. "Who did this to you?" James asked quietly. His voice was low enough that only she could hear. Maya shook her head, tears burning her eyes. She couldn't tell him. She couldn't tell anyone. If Derek found out she'd talked, if he knew she'd shown someone the bruises, he would kill her. He'd promised he would, and Derek always kept his promises. The paramedics arrived then, bustling in with their equipment and their questions. Maya answered mechanically, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, she'd been feeling dizzy. No, she hadn't eaten breakfast. No, she didn't know why she'd fainted. One of the paramedics, a woman with kind eyes, took her blood pressure and frowned. "When did the symptoms start?" she asked. "The trembling, the confusion, the nausea?" Maya thought about it. When had it started? 2 months ago? 3? Time had become slippery lately, sliding through her fingers like water. "I don't know," she whispered. "Ma'am," the paramedic said gently, "your symptoms are consistent with chronic poisoning. We need to get you to a hospital right away." The word poisoning hung in the air like a bomb. Maya saw James's face change, saw understanding dawn in his eyes. But before she could say anything, before she could explain or deny or deflect, her purse fell open. Prescription bottles scattered across the marble floor. So many bottles. Pills for anxiety, pills for sleep, pills for pain, pills whose names she couldn't even pronounce anymore. James picked up her employee badge, which had also fallen from her purse. Maya watched his face as he read it. Her maiden name was printed there, Maya Sullivan, but her wedding ring, still on her finger, was engraved with different words. Mrs. Derek Garrett. The paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her toward the elevator, Maya heard James on his phone, his voice crisp and commanding. I want her medical bills sent to the company, all of them, and get me her employee file. Everything we have on Maya Sullivan. Maya closed her eyes. She should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt terrified, because if James Henderson started digging into her life, he would find things. Terrible things. Things that would put them both in danger. And Derek would find out. Derek always found out. The ambulance ride to Chicago Memorial Hospital passed in a blur of sirens and fluorescent lights. Maya lay on the stretcher, staring at the ceiling, trying to prepare herself for what came next. Derek would be notified. The hospital would call her emergency contact. And Derek Garrett was always listed as her emergency contact. She didn't have to wait long. By the time the emergency room doctors had drawn her blood and started an IV, Derek was striding through the double doors with a bouquet of flowers and a face full of perfectly calibrated concern. He looked exactly like what he was, a successful pharmaceutical sales executive, handsome in his tailored suit, confident in his expensive shoes, charming in the way he greeted the nurses by name, as if he'd known them for years. My wife, Derek said to the nurse at the station, his voice breaking slightly. Maya Garrett. They called and said she collapsed at work. Is she okay? Can I see her? The nurse smiled at him. Of course she smiled. Everyone smiled at Derek. He had that effect on people. She's stable, Mr. Garrett. The doctor is with her now. You can go back in just a moment. Derek set the flowers on the counter and pulled out his phone, showing the nurse something on the screen. I've been keeping a diary, he said quietly, of her symptoms, the confusion, the memory loss, the paranoia. I've been trying to get her to see a psychiatrist, but she refuses. She says I'm trying to control her. The nurse's expression shifted to sympathy. That must be so difficult for you. It is, Derek said, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. But I love her. I just want her to get better. We've been researching treatment facilities. I even had our house tested for contaminants. Old pipes, lead paint. We found some issues with the well water, and I've been begging her to stay at a hotel while we fix it, but she's so stubborn. Maya heard all of this from her bed in the emergency room. She heard Derek weaving his web of lies, watched him manipulate the staff with his medical knowledge and his crocodile tears. She'd seen this performance before. The concerned husband, the patient caregiver, the man who just wanted to help his mentally ill wife. When Derek finally came into her room, his face transformed the moment the curtain closed behind him. The concern melted away, replaced by something cold and calculating. He bent down and kissed her forehead. To anyone watching, it looked tender, but his lips were ice against her skin, and his whispered words were razors. What did you tell them? He asked softly. Nothing, Maya whispered back. I didn't say anything. Your CEO was there, James Henderson. He saw the bruises. I didn't tell him anything. I swear. Derek's hand closed around her wrist, his thumb pressing into the tender skin where bruises already bloomed. Keep it that way. Or Isabella Henderson, his precious 3-year-old daughter, might have an accident at her preschool. These things happen. Children are so fragile. Maya's blood turned to ice. You wouldn't. Try me, Derek said, still smiling, still looking like the perfect husband to anyone who might glance through the curtain. You know I keep my promises, Maya. The doctor entered then, a tall woman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. She looked at Derek, then at Maya, and something in her expression suggested she'd seen this dynamic before. Mr. Garrett, the doctor said. Miss Garrett, we have your toxicology results back. Derek squeezed Maya's wrist once more before releasing it and turning to face the doctor with an expression of eager concern. Is she okay? What's wrong with her? The doctor's eyes never left Maya's face. Your wife has been poisoned, Mr. Garrett. Chronic arsenic poisoning. Small doses over an extended period. At least 6 to 8 months. The room went silent. Derek's performance was perfect. His face crumpled. His hand flew to his mouth. "Oh my God," he breathed. "The well water. I told you. I told you we needed to move out during the remediation." He turned to the doctor, pulling out his phone again. "We just found out last month, old house, 1920s Tudor, the pipes, the well system. Look, here's the contract with the environmental company." He showed the doctor a PDF on his phone. It looked completely legitimate. Of course it did. Derek had had months to prepare this alibi. The doctor examined the document, then looked back at Maya. "Mrs. Garrett, did you know about the water contamination?" Maya opened her mouth. She could expose him right now. She could tell the truth. But Derek's words echoed in her mind. Isabella Henderson, his precious 3-year-old daughter, an accident at her preschool. "Yes," Maya heard herself say. "The well water. We've been trying to fix it." The doctor didn't look convinced, but without Maya's cooperation, there was nothing she could do. She ordered more tests, recommended Maya stay for observation, and left with a backward glance that said, "I know something is wrong here." After she left, Derek sat in the chair beside Maya's bed and scrolled through his phone. To any observer, he was a devoted husband keeping vigil. But Maya saw the satisfied smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. He'd won again. He always won. In the hospital corridor, James Henderson stood just outside Maya's room, close enough to hear voices but not words. He'd followed the ambulance to the hospital, unable to shake the image of Maya lying on his lobby floor, unable to ignore the bruises he'd seen on her neck. Poisoning, the paramedics had said. And now James couldn't stop thinking about the employee file sitting on his phone. Maya Sullivan, bachelor's degree in business administration. Previous position, marketing manager at a Fortune 500 company. Salary, $90,000 a year. She'd taken a job as a facilities manager at Henderson Tech 3 years ago. Salary, $42,000, a $50,000 pay cut for a position she was wildly overqualified for. People didn't do that without a reason. James pulled out his phone and typed a name into the search bar. Maya Sullivan, Chicago. What he found made his blood run cold. James Henderson sat in his office on the 40th floor, staring at his computer screen. Outside his window, Chicago sprawled in all directions, a forest of steel and glass under a gray November sky. But James wasn't looking at the view. He was looking at an obituary from 13 years ago. Dr. Robert Sullivan and Dr. Patricia Sullivan, renowned cardiac surgeons, were killed in a tragic car accident on Interstate 57. They are survived by their daughter, Maya Elizabeth Sullivan, age 19. James clicked through to the next article. This one was from a legal website. The Sullivan Medical Trust, established in memory of doctors Robert and Patricia Sullivan, contains assets totaling $47 million. Per the terms of the trust, sole beneficiary Maya Elizabeth Sullivan will receive full control of the principal and all accrued interest upon reaching age 35. In the event of the beneficiary's death prior to age 35, assets will transfer to the surviving spouse. James did the math. Maya was 32 now. In 2 years and 4 months, she would inherit $47 million, unless she died first. In which case, everything would go to Derek Garrett. James leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. Arsenic poisoning, chronic exposure, small doses over months. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't contaminated well water. Someone was deliberately poisoning Maya Sullivan, and James would bet everything he owned that the someone was her husband. But why would Derek Garrett, a pharmaceutical sales executive, need to murder his wife for money? James pulled up his phone and called the one person he trusted to find answers. "Linda Hayes Investigations," a crisp voice answered. "Linda, it's James Henderson. I need you to run a deep background check on someone. Priority 1. Who's the target?" Derek Garrett, mid-30s, works in pharmaceutical sales for Morrison Labs. Married to Maya Garrett, née Sullivan. "I need everything. Financials, employment history, criminal record, parking tickets, everything." There was a pause. Linda Hayes had been a special agent with the FBI for 20 years before starting her own investigation firm. She didn't ask unnecessary questions. "How fast do you need it?" "Yesterday." "You'll have preliminary results in 6 hours." James hung up and turned back to his computer, continuing his research. He found more articles about the Sullivan family. The trust wasn't just $47 million sitting in a bank account. It was invested, diversified, managed by a team of attorneys. And it came with a complicated history. One article from 15 years ago caught his attention. Sullivan family torn apart by inheritance dispute. James clicked through and started reading. Patricia Sullivan's younger sister, Eleanor Wells, has filed suit claiming the Sullivan Medical Trust should include provisions for her daughter, Amber Wells. Eleanor Wells, a registered nurse, claims she was unfairly excluded from her sister's estate planning following a family disagreement. The court ruled in favor of the trust as originally written. Eleanor Wells released a statement saying her family would never forgive the betrayal. James studied the photo accompanying the article. Two women who looked like sisters, though the resemblance ended at their bone structure. Patricia Sullivan stood tall and poised in a designer suit. Eleanor Wells looked tired and angry in a nurse's uniform. Between them, barely visible in the background, was a teenage girl with blonde hair and cold eyes. The caption read, "Amber Wells, age 16, leaves courthouse with her mother." James felt something click in his mind. A piece of a puzzle he hadn't known he was assembling. He made a note to have Linda look into Eleanor Wells and her daughter Amber. Then he returned to researching Derek Garrett. 6 hours later, Linda Hayes walked into his office without knocking. She never knocked. She dropped a thick file folder on his desk and said, "You've got a problem. Tell me." Derek Garrett has $340,000 in gambling debts, sports betting, poker, online casinos. He's been hemorrhaging money for 2 years. Morrison Labs is under federal investigation for kickback schemes, and Garrett is one of the executives on the SEC's radar. He's looking at possible indictment within the next 6 months. James absorbed this. So he needs money. Desperately, but here's where it gets interesting. Linda pulled out her phone and showed James a photo. This is Derek Garrett 4.5 years ago. The photo showed Derek at a restaurant with a woman. Not Maya, a tall redhead with a beautiful smile. They looked happy, in love. Her name is Rebecca Martinez. They dated for 3 years, were about to get engaged. Then Derek went to some grief support group thing and met Maya Sullivan. Within 6 months, he dumped Rebecca and married Maya. He targeted her, James said. Looks that way. But here's the question. How did he know about the trust? It's not public information. The financials are sealed. You need specialized access to find out what Maya Sullivan was worth. Someone told him, James said slowly. Someone who knew the family. Linda smiled grimly. Now you're thinking like an investigator. Which brings me to the next part. She pulled out another photo. This is Amber Collins, age 29, nurse practitioner at Morrison Labs, works in the same building as Derek Garrett. Want to guess her birth name? James already knew. Amber Wells, Eleanor Wells' daughter, Patricia Sullivan's niece, Maya's second cousin. Give the man a prize. Amber legally changed her name from Wells to Collins 6 years ago, right around the time she started working at Morrison Labs, right around the time Derek Garrett started working there too. James stared at the photo of Amber Collins. Blonde hair, beautiful face, cold eyes. The same cold eyes from the courthouse photo 15 years ago. She found him, James said. Amber found Derek. She knew about the trust. She knew Maya would inherit. And she recruited Derek to marry Maya and kill her so they could both get rich. That's my read on it, Linda said. But we can't prove it. Not yet. I've been tailing Derek for the past 4 hours. He's having an affair with Amber Collins. Has been for at least 18 months. Probably longer. She lives in a luxury apartment in River North that Derek pays for. According to the neighbors, Derek told everyone he's separated from his mentally ill wife and waiting for the divorce to finalize so he can marry his girlfriend. Amber is the girlfriend. Amber is the girlfriend, Linda confirmed. And I think she's been calling the shots from day one. I need more time to build the case, but James, we're looking at a conspiracy to commit murder. Premeditated, planned for years, and they're very, very good at it. James's phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Maya Garrett had been discharged against medical advice. Her husband had taken her home. We need to move fast, James said. If Derek knows I'm suspicious, he might accelerate his timeline. Or he might eliminate you, Linda said bluntly. You're a witness now. You saw the bruises. You know about the poisoning. If I were him, I'd be thinking about how to make you disappear too. James thought about his daughter Isabella, 3 years old, blonde curls, bright smile, the only light in his life since his wife Emma had died in childbirth. Then we better make sure he doesn't get the chance, James said. I want 24/7 surveillance on Derek and Amber. I want every phone call, every text message, every meeting. I want to know what they are planning before they plan it. Linda nodded and stood to leave. At the door, she paused. James, there's one more thing. I pulled the old police report from the Sullivan parents' accident. Car went off the road on I-57 during a rainstorm. Investigators found evidence of brake line tampering, but couldn't prove it. The case went cold. You think Derek killed them too? I think Derek worked as an automotive mechanic while he was in college. The timeline works. And I think someone very smart helped him plan it. Someone who knew the family. Someone who knew about the trust and how it was structured. Amber, James said. Amber, Linda agreed. She was 16 when her aunt and uncle died. Smart enough to plan, too young to execute. But 13 years later, after years of planning and preparation, she found herself the perfect weapon in Derek Garrett, a desperate man with nothing to lose and everything to gain. After Linda left, James stood at his window and looked out over the city. Somewhere down there, Maya Sullivan was locked in a house with a man who was slowly killing her. A man who thought he'd gotten away with the perfect crime. But James Henderson hadn't built a billion-dollar company by letting bad people win. He made another call, this one to Detective Kate Morrison, a woman he'd worked with before on corporate fraud cases, a woman who specialized in domestic violence and financial crimes. Kate, he said when she answered, I need your help. And I'm about to tell you something that sounds insane but is completely true. Are you somewhere you can talk? I'm listening, Kate Morrison said. James told her everything. Linda Hayes sat in a coffee shop across the street from Morrison Labs, watching people come and go through the glass doors. It was 2 days after Maya had been discharged from the hospital, and Linda had been following Derek Garrett's movements like a shadow. He'd been to the office twice. Both times, he'd spent less than an hour at his desk before disappearing into the parking garage. Linda had followed him to a luxury apartment building in River North, where he'd stayed for 3 hours before returning home. The apartment belonged to Amber Collins. Now Linda was waiting to approach Amber directly. It was a risky move, but James had approved it. Sometimes you had to shake the tree to see what fell out. At 3:30 in the afternoon, Amber Collins emerged from Morrison Labs. She was beautiful in person, even more so than in her photos. Tall, blonde, perfectly dressed in designer clothes that whispered money. She walked like someone who owned the world, her heels clicking confidently against the pavement. Linda intercepted her at the corner. Ms. Collins, do you have a moment? Amber turned, her face pleasant but cautious. I'm sorry, do I know you? My name is Jennifer Mason. I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep with Benton Medical. Linda held out a fake business card. I'm new to the Chicago territory, and I heard you're the person to know at Morrison Labs. I was hoping to buy you a coffee and pick your brain about the market here. It was a solid cover story. Pharmaceutical reps networked with nurses all the time. Amber's face relaxed into a smile. Sure, she said. There's a good place around the corner. 10 minutes later, they were sitting in a quiet cafe, Linda with her laptop open like she was taking notes, Amber sipping a latte and clearly enjoying the attention. So, Linda said, how long have you been at Morrison Labs? 6 years, Amber said. I love it there. Great team, excellent benefits. Though the politics can get exhausting, you know how it is. Linda laughed knowingly. Tell me about it. Is it true Morrison is under investigation right now? The SEC thing? Amber's expression flickered just for a second. Where did you hear that? Industry gossip, Linda said with a shrug. You know how people talk. I heard some of the executives might be in trouble. It's complicated, Amber said carefully. Some of the sales guys made questionable choices with incentives, but the company is cooperating fully with investigators. It'll blow over. Must be stressful, though, Linda said, for everyone involved. Amber took another sip of her latte. It is, especially for my boyfriend. He's one of the sales executives under scrutiny. Derek Garrett, have you heard of him? Linda pretended to think. Name sounds familiar. Is he local? Born and raised, Amber said. Her voice softened when she talked about Derek. Genuine emotion there, or a very good performance. We've been together for about a year and a half. He's going through a difficult divorce right now. His wife has mental health issues. It's been really hard on him. That must be challenging for both of you, Linda said sympathetically. It is. Amber leaned forward, her voice dropping conspiratorially. Between you and me, she's getting worse. Paranoia, mood swings, memory problems. Derek does everything for her. He even prepares her vitamin supplements himself because she can't remember to take her medications. He's basically her caretaker at this point. Linda's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. Wow, that's a lot for him to handle. It really is. But he's such a good man. Patient, caring. He just wants her to be somewhere safe so we can finally start our life together. Maybe have kids of our own. Amber smiled dreamily. He's been researching treatment facilities, places where she can get the help she needs. How long until you think he'll be able to leave? Linda asked, still maintaining her cover. Soon, I hope. Amber's eyes had a faraway look. My mother always told me, good things come to those who wait. You have to be patient, play the long game, and I'm very good at waiting. There was something in the way she said it, something cold beneath the warm words. Linda filed it away and steered the conversation to safer topics. The Chicago weather, good restaurants, professional networking. After 30 minutes, they exchanged fake contact information and parted ways. Linda walked back to her car, then immediately called James. I just talked to Amber Collins, she said, and I'm telling you, something is off. She's too smooth, too prepared. Every answer sounded rehearsed. What did she say? James asked. Linda recounted the conversation, including Amber's comments about Derek preparing Maya's vitamins and researching treatment facilities. He's preparing her vitamins, James repeated slowly. That's how he's doing it. The arsenic. He's mixing it into supplements she takes daily. That's my guess. But James, here's the thing. When I mentioned inheritance or money, Amber's expression changed, just for a split second, like she was thinking about something, calculating. And then she asked me how much pharmaceutical sales pays these days. She was fishing for information. About what? I think she wanted to know if I knew about the trust, if I was digging into their finances. She was testing me. James was quiet for a moment. You think she's the one in charge? I know she is, Linda said. Derek Garrett is desperate and stupid. Amber Collins is neither. She's cold, controlled, and she's been planning something for a long time. I need to dig deeper into her background. Do it, James said. And Linda, be careful. If she's as smart as you think she is, she might realize you weren't really a pharmaceutical rep. She already knows, Linda said calmly. I could see it in her eyes when I left. She's going to tell Derek that someone was asking questions, which means our timeline just got shorter. After hanging up with James, Linda drove to her office and spent the next 6 hours hacking into databases that technically required warrants. She'd apologize to Detective Morrison later. Right now, speed mattered more than procedure. What she found confirmed every suspicion. 6 years ago, Amber Wells had legally changed her name to Amber Collins, using her maternal grandmother's maiden name. 1 month later, she'd started working at Morrison Labs. 2 months after that, Derek Garrett had joined the company. Linda pulled Derek's employment history. Before Morrison Labs, he'd worked for 3 different pharmaceutical companies, never staying longer than 18 months, always leaving under questionable circumstances. But Morrison Labs was different. He'd been there for 6 years, the same 6 years Amber had been there. Linda dug into their phone records next. This required more creative hacking, but Linda had friends at the NSA who owed her favors. The records showed 847 calls between Amber and Derek over the past 4.5 years. Far more than a typical affair, but it was the financial records that sealed it. Amber Collins had been making regular payments to Derek Garrett, small amounts, $200 here, $500 there, always through cash apps or cryptocurrency, untraceable unless you knew where to look. The payments started 4 years ago, right before Derek had married Maya. Linda thought about the timeline. 4.5 years ago, Derek and Amber had met. 4 years ago, Amber had started paying Derek. Shortly after, Derek had dumped his girlfriend of 3 years and joined a grief support group where he'd coincidentally met Maya Sullivan, heir to a $47 million trust. 6 months later, Derek and Maya were married. 8 months ago, Maya had started showing symptoms of arsenic poisoning. And throughout it all, Amber Collins had been there, watching, waiting, controlling. Linda made one more discovery. In Amber's cloud storage, protected by passwords that Linda cracked using software that definitely wasn't legal, she found emails. The first one was from 5 years ago, sent from Amber to Derek. Found the perfect target, Maya Sullivan, 27 years old. Parents died 13 years ago in a car accident. Trust fund heiress, but she doesn't act like it. Works a regular job, lives modestly. She's grieving, vulnerable, isolated. You need to join her grief support group. I'll feed you exactly what to say to her. Everything she needs to hear. Make her fall in love with you. The second email was from 4 years ago. Good work building her trust. Now propose. Make it romantic. She needs to believe this is real. Once you're married, the clock starts ticking. She turns 35 in 2.5 years. We need to make sure she doesn't live that long. The third email was from 8 months ago. It's time. I've sourced the arsenic through my pharmacy connections. Small doses mixed into her daily vitamins. Document everything. Her confusion, memory loss, paranoia. We need evidence of mental decline in case we need to pursue an incompetency claim instead. The most recent email was from 3 days ago. The pregnancy is perfect timing. This accelerates everything. Complications during childbirth are common, especially for someone in her deteriorating condition. After she's gone, you'll need to disappear too. I've arranged everything, don't worry. Trust me. Linda sat back in her chair, reading that last line again. After she's gone, you'll need to disappear too. Amber wasn't planning to share the money with Derek. She was planning to kill him. Linda called James immediately. We have a problem, a big one. Amber isn't just helping Derek kill Maya. She's planning to kill Derek too. What? Linda explained what she'd found. The emails, the financial trail, the long-term planning. Here's how I think it works, Linda said. Derek is the grieving widower who inherits the $47 million. Then Amber, as Maya's only living blood relative, contests the inheritance. There's a long legal battle between spouse and family. But if Derek also dies, say from suicide due to overwhelming grief, then the trust automatically goes to blood relatives. That's Amber. She's been planning this for years, James said quietly. 13 years. Since her aunt and uncle died. Longer, Linda corrected. I found her high school essays in an archived school website. One of them is about her mother's sister, who was a surgeon and lived in a mansion while they struggled in a small apartment. Amber has been angry about the Sullivan wealth her entire life. When her aunt and uncle died, she saw an opportunity. She just had to wait for Maya to get old enough, vulnerable enough. And she found Derek. She created Derek, Linda said. She turned a desperate gambler into a murderer, and now she's going to eliminate him too. James, we need to move now. If Amber suspects we're onto her, she'll accelerate the timeline. Maya could be dead by the end of the week. James made a decision. Can you get this evidence to Detective Morrison in a format that doesn't require explaining how you obtained it? I can make it look like an anonymous tip. Printed documents left in an envelope. No digital trail. Do it. And Linda, we need to get Maya out of that house. I'm working on it, Linda said. But James, there's another problem. Derek knows you were at the hospital. He knows you saw the bruises. If I were Amber, I'd be thinking about how to eliminate witnesses. James thought about Isabella again, his daughter, his entire world. Then we make sure she doesn't get the chance, he said. It's time to bring in the FBI. Detective Kate Morrison sat in James Henderson's office, reading through the documents Linda Hayes had compiled. Outside the windows, the sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Inside, the mood was far darker. This is circumstantial, Kate said finally. The emails, the financial records, the timeline, it all points to conspiracy to commit murder. But we need more to get a warrant. We need something that directly ties Amber Collins to the poisoning. We need Derek Garrett to confess, or we need physical evidence. Maya is dying, James said flatly. We don't have time to build a perfect case. I understand that, But if we move too fast and the charges don't stick, Amber and Derek walk free and Maya ends up dead anyway. We need to be smart about this. Linda Hayes spoke up from her position by the window. What if we can get Derek to turn on Amber? He doesn't know she's planning to kill him too. If he finds out, he might be willing to cooperate. That's a big if, Kate said. And approaching Derek directly tips our hand. So we approach him indirectly, Linda said. We let him overhear something, see something, plant a seed of doubt about his precious girlfriend. Kate considered this. You're talking about running an operation without official sanction. I'm talking about saving a woman's life, Linda shot back. You can arrest me later if you want. Right now, Maya Sullivan is locked in a house with a man who's been slowly poisoning her for 8 months. Every day we wait is another day closer to her death. Kate looked at James. This is your company on the line, your reputation. If this goes wrong, the blowback will be significant. I don't care, James said. My wife died in my arms 3 years ago. I couldn't save her, but I can save Maya Sullivan. Tell me what you need. Kate pulled out her phone and started making calls. I have a friend at the White Collar Crimes Division. If we can prove Derek Garrett killed Robert and Patricia Sullivan 13 years ago, we can bring federal charges. Murder across state lines. The FBI has jurisdiction. The brake line tampering, Linda said. The old police report mentioned it, but couldn't prove anything. Forensic technology has come a long way in 13 years, Kate said. If we can get the FBI to reopen the case, they might find something the local police missed. And if we can tie Derek to that murder, we have leverage. We can offer him a deal, testify against Amber, and maybe avoid the death penalty. Do it, James said. Kate made more calls. Within an hour, she had FBI Special Agent Marcus Webb on a conference call. Linda laid out everything they'd found. The trust, the timeline, Derek's background, Amber's family connection. The emails. Webb was silent for a long moment after they finished. This is the most elaborate murder plot I've seen in 15 years with the Bureau. If even half of this is true, we're looking at multiple homicides across state lines, conspiracy, financial fraud, and attempted murder. I'll get authorization to reopen the Sullivan parents' case. Give me 24 hours. We might not have 24 hours, James said. Then we better hope we get lucky, Webb replied. They got lucky. The next morning, FBI forensic specialists re-examined the evidence from the Sullivan car accident. Using updated technology, they found traces of hydraulic fluid on Derek Garrett's old work jacket, which had been in police storage for 13 years. The fluid matched the type used in the Sullivan's vehicle. Combined with Derek's employment records showing he'd worked as a mechanic at a shop 2 miles from the Sullivan's house, it was enough for an arrest warrant. But before they could execute the warrant, something happened that changed everything. Derek Garrett walked into a Chicago police station at 8:30 in the morning and asked to speak to Detective Kate Morrison. He was wearing a bulletproof vest under his jacket and carrying a flash drive. I need protection, Derek said. From Amber Collins. I'll tell you everything. But you have to protect me. She's going to kill me, just like she killed Maya's parents. Just like she's been poisoning Maya. She orchestrated all of it, every single piece. And I was stupid enough to believe she loved me. Kate Morrison looked at the broken man in front of her and said, "Start talking." What Derek Garrett confessed over the next 6 hours was chilling in its detail. Amber Collins, née Amber Wells, had approached Derek 6 years ago in a bar near Morrison Labs. She'd done her research. She knew he was drowning in gambling debts. She knew he was desperate. She knew he had mechanical skills from his college job and pharmaceutical knowledge from his current position. She'd showed him photos of Maya Sullivan. She'd explained about the trust. She'd outlined a plan that would take years but would ultimately net them both $47 million. First, Derek would befriend Maya at a grief support group. He'd romance her, marry her, and gain her trust. Then once they were married, they would wait, building documentation of Maya's mental decline, creating an alibi of the caring husband with the mentally ill wife. When Maya turned 34, they would begin the poisoning. Slow enough that it looked like deteriorating health. Fast enough that she'd die before her 35th birthday. Derek would inherit everything as a surviving spouse. Then Amber would contest the inheritance as Maya's closest living blood relative. There would be a legal battle that would take years and attract attention. While everyone was focused on the inheritance fight, Derek would commit suicide. Amber would provide the pills. She'd write the note. She'd make it look like grief and guilt had driven him to it. With Derek dead, the trust would revert to blood relatives. Amber would inherit everything, and she would finally get the money she'd believed was rightfully hers all along. She's been planning this since she was 16 years old, Derek said, his voice hollow. Her mother died hating Patricia Sullivan, hating the entire Sullivan family for excluding them from the wealth. Amber grew up hearing about how they deserved half of everything, how they'd been betrayed. She internalized it. It became her entire identity. What about Maya's parents? Kate asked. Did you kill them? Derek nodded slowly. Amber helped. She worked at the hospital where they did their rounds. She knew their schedule. She told me when they'd be driving home, what route they'd take. I cut the brake lines during a rainstorm, made it look like an accident. You were 19 years old. I was desperate, stupid. I owed money to people who were threatening my family. Amber paid off my debts. She said all I had to do was one thing, and then in 13 years, we'd both be rich. I thought I could do one thing and walk away. I was wrong. She owns me now. She's always owned me. Kate leaned forward. Why are you confessing now? Derek pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. It was a suicide note in his own handwriting, practiced until it looked natural. She gave me this 2 days ago, told me to memorize it, said after Maya delivers the baby and dies from complications, I need to wait exactly 3 weeks and then take an overdose of sleeping pills. She has the pills already. She has everything planned. But you didn't know she was going to kill you until recently. I found her emails. She wasn't as careful as she thought. I've been recording our conversations for 3 months. I knew something was wrong, the way she talked about the money, about our future. She never included me in the long-term plans, just the immediate ones. So I started documenting everything. Insurance. He handed Kate the flash drive. This has recordings of Amber giving me instructions, emails with detailed plans, financial transactions. Everything you need to prove she masterminded this. Kate took the drive. What do you want in exchange? Protection from Amber. And I want to testify. I'm guilty. I know that. I killed Maya's parents. I've been poisoning Maya for 8 months. I deserve prison. But I want Amber to go down too. She can't get away with this. She'll just find someone else, someone more desperate than me, and she'll do it all over again. Kate looked at Special Agent Webb, who'd been listening via phone. Webb's voice came through the speaker. Mr. Garrett, we're prepared to offer you a plea deal. You plead guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count vignette of attempted murder. You testify against Amber Collins. In exchange, we take the death penalty off the table. You'll serve 25 years with possibility of parole. I'll take it, Derek said without hesitation. Just keep me away from Amber. She'll kill me the first chance she gets. Where is Maya now? Kate asked. Derek's face crumpled. At the house, locked in the upstairs bedroom. Amber told me to increase the dosage this week. She's very sick. You need to get her out. Please, before it's too late. Kate was already moving. Within minutes, she had a SWAT team mobilized. Within an hour, they were at Derek's house with a battering ram and a warrant for Maya's rescue. They found her exactly where Derek said she'd be, locked in the bedroom, barely conscious, 10 weeks pregnant, barely clinging to life, but alive. As paramedics loaded Maya onto a stretcher for the second time in 2 weeks, Kate Morrison made one more call, this one to Amber Collins. Mr. Collins, this is Detective Kate Morrison with the Chicago Police Department. I need you to come to the station to answer some questions about Maya Garrett. Of course, Amber said smoothly. Is she okay? Derek told me she was back in the hospital. We'll discuss that when you get here, Kate said. How soon can you come in? I can be there in 30 minutes. Perfect, Kate said. See you soon. She hung up and smiled grimly. Amber Collins thought she was coming in for a routine questioning. She had no idea Derek had flipped on her. She had no idea they had all the evidence they needed. She was about to walk into a trap, and this time the mastermind wouldn't be the one setting it. Amber Collins walked into the Chicago Police Department at exactly 3:15 in the afternoon, dressed in a professional Navy suit and carrying a designer handbag. She looked every inch the concerned friend, the worried colleague who'd come to help in any way she could. Detective Kate Morrison met her in the lobby. Miss Collins, thank you for coming. Let's talk in interview room 3. Amber followed Kate down a hallway lined with doors, unaware that behind the mirrored glass in interview room 3 sat James Henderson, Linda Hayes, Special Agent Marcus Webb, and 2 assistant district attorneys. They were all watching, waiting. Kate gestured to a chair. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? I'm fine, thank you. Amber settled into the chair, crossing her legs elegantly. How can I help? Derek called this morning and said Maya was back in the hospital. He sounded devastated. When was the last time you spoke to Derek? Kate asked. This morning, around 9. He was at the hospital with Maya. Kate made a note. And how long have you known Derek Garrett? About 6 years. We worked together at Morrison Labs. He's in sales. I'm a nurse practitioner. We became friends when he started there. Friends? Kate asked. Or something more? Amber's expression didn't change. We're dating. Have been for about 18 months. I know he's married, but he and Maya have been separated for a long time. She has mental health issues. Derek has been trying to help her get treatment, but it's been difficult. Tell me about Maya's mental health issues. Paranoia mostly, memory problems, mood swings. Derek thinks it might be early onset dementia, but she refuses to see specialists. She's convinced he's trying to control her. Is he? Kate asked. Of course not. Derek is the most patient man I've ever met. He prepares her medications, makes sure she eats, documents everything for her doctors. He's basically her full-time caregiver. It's exhausting for him. Kate leaned forward. What kind of medications does Derek prepare for Maya? Vitamins mostly. She's very malnourished, refuses to eat properly. He makes custom supplement packs to make sure she's getting what she needs. Custom supplement pack, Kate repeated. Does Derek ever add anything to those supplements besides vitamins? Amber's eyes sharpened slightly. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. Does Derek Garrett add anything to his wife's vitamins besides standard supplements? Not that I know of. Why would he? Kate opened a folder and pulled out a document. Because Maya Garrett has been diagnosed with chronic arsenic poisoning. The kind that comes from deliberate, repeated exposure over many months. The kind that would be easy to hide in vitamin supplements. Amber's face remained perfectly composed. That's terrible. The old house, right? Derek mentioned they found contamination in the well water. There is no contamination in the well water, Kate said flatly. We had the EPA test it. It's clean. Someone has been deliberately poisoning Maya Garrett. And we know who. Well, it's not Derek, Amber said firmly. He loves her. He's trying to help her. Is he? Kate pulled out another document in. Because according to financial records, Derek Garrett has $340,000 in gambling debts. And according to public records, Maya Garrett is the sole heir to a $47 million trust that she'll inherit in 2 years. Unless she dies before her 35th birthday, in which case her husband inherits everything. Amber's expression flickered. Just for a second. Then she laughed. You think Derek is poisoning Maya for money? That's insane. He would never. We also know, Kate continued, that you've been making regular payments to Derek Garrett for the past 4 years. Small amounts through cash apps and cryptocurrency. Why would you be paying your boyfriend's wife's caretaker expenses unless you were involved in something? Those were loans, Amber said. Derek had some financial difficulties. I helped him out. 300 separate transactions over 4 years. That's not loans. That's payments. Amber's smile tightened. I don't appreciate what you're insinuating, detective. If you're accusing me of something, say it directly. Okay, Kate said. I'm accusing you of conspiracy to commit murder. I'm accusing you of orchestrating a plot to kill Maya Garrett for her inheritance. I'm accusing you of being the mastermind behind everything. Amber laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. That's ridiculous. I barely know Maya. Why would I want to kill her? Kate pulled out one more document. The old newspaper article about the Sullivan family trust dispute, the one with teenage Amber at the courthouse with her mother. Because Maya's mother, Patricia Sullivan, cut your mother, Eleanor Wells, out of the family fortune 15 years ago. Because you grew up believing you deserved half of everything Maya had. Because you've been planning this since you were 16 years old. Amber's face went cold. All pretense of warmth disappeared. You can't prove any of that. Actually, we can, Kate said. She pulled out a transcript. This is Derek Garrett's confession. All 6 hours of it. He told us everything. How you approached him 6 years ago. How you planned Maya's parents' murder. How you coached him through the courtship and marriage. How you sourced the arsenic. How you orchestrated every single detail. Derek is lying, Amber said, but her voice had changed, harder now, calculating. He has recordings, Kate said. Conversations between you and him where you give him explicit instructions on how to poison Maya, how much arsenic to use, how to document her mental decline, how to prepare for her death during childbirth. Amber's jaw clenched. He recorded me? For 3 months. He knew you were planning to kill him too. The suicide note, the sleeping pills, he found all of it. For the first time, genuine emotion crossed Amber's face. Rage. Pure, cold rage. That stupid, incompetent. She caught herself, took a breath. When she spoke again, her voice was controlled. I want a lawyer. Smart move, Kate said. But before you lawyer up, I want you to know something. Derek is cooperating fully. He's getting a plea deal. 25 years, possibility of parole. He'll be out when he's 60. He'll have a life after prison. Kate leaned across the table. You won't. You're looking at life without parole for 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. Maya's parents, Maya, Derek, you were going to kill all of them, and you almost got away with it. I said I want a lawyer, Amber repeated. Kate stood. You'll get one. But Amber, there's something you should know. Maya Sullivan is alive. She's in protective custody. Her baby is alive. Derek failed to kill her. And you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison while Maya takes that $47 million trust and uses it to help other women you tried to destroy. For just a moment, Amber's mask cracked completely. The rage that poured out was terrifying. She didn't deserve it, any of it. My mother died in a county hospital while Aunt Patricia drove a Mercedes. They had everything and we had nothing. That money should have been ours. There it is, Kate said softly. Motive? On record. Thank you, Miss Collins. Amber realized what she'd done. Her face went white. I didn't mean, yes, you did, Kate said. And now a jury will hear it. See you in court. Kate left the interview room. Behind the glass, James Henderson watched as Amber Collins sat alone at the table. Her perfect composure finally shattered. She'd spent 13 years planning the perfect crime, and she'd been undone by the one person she'd believed she controlled completely. Derek Garrett had betrayed her, and Maya Sullivan had survived. 2 days later, Amber Collins was arraigned on multiple charges. She pleaded not guilty. Her attorney was expensive and experienced, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. Derek's testimony, the recordings, the emails, the financial records, the timeline, the confession she'd made in the interview room. The trial was set for 6 months out. Until then, Amber would be held without bail, deemed a flight risk and a danger to witnesses. Derek Garrett, true to his word, testified before a grand jury. He described in painful detail how Amber had recruited him, planned the murders, and orchestrated everything. The grand jury indicted Amber on all counts, and Maya Sullivan, still weak from months of poisoning but growing stronger every day, began the long process of healing. Physically, emotionally, legally. She also began planning what she would do with her trust fund when she finally gained full control in 2 years. Because Amber had been wrong about one thing. Maya did deserve it, all of it, and she was going to use every single dollar to make sure no other woman had to suffer what she'd endured. 6 months passed in a blur of hospital stays, therapy sessions, and legal proceedings. Maya Sullivan moved into a secure apartment paid for by her trust's management team, with 24/7 security and regular check-ins from both Detective Morrison and Linda Hayes. Her pregnancy progressed despite the damage the arsenic had done to her body. The doctors called it miraculous. Maya called it stubbornness. The baby had survived 8 months of systematic poisoning. She wasn't going to give up now. James Henderson visited weekly, always appropriately, always with someone else present. He'd become an unlikely ally in Maya's recovery, connecting her with the best doctors, the best therapists, the best attorneys. He never asked for anything in return. He just showed up, steady and reliable, like a brother she'd never had. One afternoon in March, Maya sat in her apartment with Detective Kate Morrison, going over testimony preparation for the upcoming trial. "They're going to ask you about the abuse," Kate said gently. "The physical abuse, the emotional abuse, the isolation. Derek's attorney will try to paint him as a victim of Amber's manipulation. They'll want sympathy." "He chose to kill my parents," Maya said quietly. Her hand rested on her pregnant belly, now obviously round at 28 weeks. "He chose to poison me. He chose to marry me knowing he was going to murder me. I don't care if Amber manipulated him. He made choices." "Oh, no. Good," Kate said. "That's what you need to say on the stand. Clear, firm. You're not a victim anymore. You're a survivor, and you're going to be a mother." Maya smiled slightly. "A mother. I still can't believe it sometimes. After everything, there's going to be this tiny person who needs me, who I have to protect and raise in love." "Have you thought about names?" Kate asked. "Emma," Maya said, "after James's wife, the one he lost. He said it would honor her memory, and I think she'd like knowing there's another Emma in the world." Emma Grace Sullivan." "Beautiful name," Kate said. They worked for another hour, going over potential questions, preparing responses, building Maya's confidence for what would be the hardest thing she'd ever have to do: face Derek and Amber in court and tell the world what they'd done to her. The trial began on a cold April morning. The courthouse was packed with media, true crime enthusiasts, and people who couldn't believe the story unfolding in Chicago's criminal court. Derek Garrett, as part of his plea deal, testified first. He walked the jury through everything: meeting Amber at a bar 6 years ago, learning about Maya and the trust, planning the murder of Maya's parents, cutting the brake lines, waiting 13 years, joining the grief support group, courting Maya, marrying her, starting the poisoning. His attorney tried to frame him as a victim of Amber's manipulation, a desperate man who'd been controlled by a master manipulator. But under cross-examination by the prosecution, Derek admitted he'd had choices. He could have said no. He could have gone to the police. He could have walked away at any time. He hadn't. "Why not?" the prosecutor asked. "Because I wanted the money," Derek said quietly. "I told myself it was Amber's plan, Amber's idea, Amber's fault. But the truth is I wanted $47 million, and I was willing to kill for it. That's on me, not Amber. Me." It was damning testimony for both of them. Then came Amber's trial. She'd been separated from Derek's case, tried individually. Her attorney was brilliant, arguing that Derek was a liar trying to reduce his sentence by blaming his innocent girlfriend, that the emails were fabricated, that the recordings were taken out of context. But then Maya took the stand. She walked to the witness box slowly, one hand on her very pregnant belly, and was sworn in. The courtroom went silent as she settled into the chair and looked directly at Amber Collins for the first time since the arrest. Amber stared back, her face a mask of cold hatred. The prosecutor began gently. "Miss Sullivan, can you tell us about your marriage to Derek Garrett?" Maya took a breath. "It started like a fairy tale. He was charming, attentive, everything I'd ever wanted. I'd lost my parents 7 years earlier. I was lonely, grieving. Derek seemed to understand that. He told me he'd lost someone too. He knew what it felt like to be alone." "When did things change?" "About a year after we got married. Small things at first. He started criticizing my appearance, my friends, my job. He said I was too sensitive when I got upset, that I was imagining things, that I was unstable." "Did he ever hurt you physically?" "Yes, it started with grabbing my arms too hard, squeezing until I bruised, then pushing, then hitting. By the end, he was strangling me, threatening me, telling me if I ever tried to leave, he'd kill me. And I believed him." "Why didn't you leave?" Maya's voice broke slightly. "Because he told me he'd hurt other people if I did. He threatened James Henderson's daughter, a 3-year-old child. He said if I ran, if I told anyone, he'd make sure she had an accident. And I knew he was capable of it because he'd killed before." "Yo, when did you learn about the poisoning?" "Not until I collapsed at work and the hospital ran tests. Even then, I didn't believe it at first. Derek convinced me it was the well water. He showed me contracts, paperwork, everything. He was so believable. I thought I was going crazy. I thought maybe I was mentally ill, like he kept saying. The prosecutor pulled out a photo. One of Maya at her thinnest, taken by hospital staff when she'd been rescued. She looked skeletal, dying. Is this you? Yes, 3 months ago. And is this the man who did that to you? The prosecutor pointed at Derek in the courtroom. Yes. Is this the woman who orchestrated it? The prosecutor pointed at Amber. Maya looked directly at Amber Collins. Yes, my cousin, my family, someone I trusted. She planned everything. She found Derek. She told him how to poison me. She coached him through killing my parents. And she was going to kill him too. All for money that she believed should have been hers. Do you believe this money should have been hers? The prosecutor asked. No, Maya said firmly. My parents created that trust to help people, to fund medical research and education, to save lives. Amber wanted to use it to fund her lifestyle. There's a difference. Under cross-examination, Amber's attorney tried to shake Maya's testimony, tried to suggest she was confused, traumatized, misremembering, but Maya held firm, clear, steady, strong. When she finished testifying, she walked past Amber's table. Amber leaned forward and whispered, "You'll never be whole. You'll always be broken." Maya stopped, turned, looked down at her cousin. "I'm alive," Maya said softly. "That's more than you'll ever be." The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Amber Collins was found guilty on all counts. 2 counts of first-degree murder for Robert and Patricia Sullivan. 1 count of attempted murder for Maya Sullivan. Conspiracy to commit murder. Fraud. Financial crimes. At sentencing, the judge looked at Amber and said, "You spent 13 years planning the destruction of your own family for money you were never entitled to. You murdered 2 brilliant doctors who saved countless lives. You attempted to murder a young woman whose only crime was being born into the family you envied. The court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole." Amber showed no emotion as she was led away in handcuffs, but as she passed Maya in the courtroom gallery, their eyes met one last time. Maya placed her hand on her pregnant belly protectively. A silent message. You failed, I survived, and I'm bringing new life into the world you tried to destroy. Amber looked away first. 2 weeks later, Derek Garrett was formally sentenced to 25 years with possibility of parole for his cooperation. He'd be eligible for release in 2041. He'd be 60 years old. In his final statement to the court, Derek said, "I can't undo what I've done. I killed 2 innocent people. I tortured a woman who'd done nothing but love me. I chose money over humanity. I'll spend every day of the next 25 years living with that. If I could trade places with Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Sullivan, I would. But I can't. So all I can do is warn others. Evil doesn't announce itself. It seduces you, makes you think you have no choice, makes you think the ends justify the means. They don't. They never do. And by the time you realize that, it's too late." He was led away to begin his sentence. And Maya Sullivan, 32 years old, 7 months pregnant, and heir to $47 million, walked out of the courthouse into the spring sunshine and began planning the rest of her life. A life without Derek, a life without Amber, a life of her own choosing. On a warm June morning, Maya Sullivan went into labor. It wasn't the peaceful, planned event she'd hoped for. It was sudden, intense, and terrifying. The baby was coming 3 weeks early, and after everything Maya's body had been through, the doctors were concerned. James Henderson drove her to the hospital, breaking every speed limit on Lakeshore Drive while talking to her calmly about breathing techniques his wife Emma had taught him before Isabella was born. "You're going to be fine," he kept saying. "The baby is going to be fine. You're both fighters." Maya gripped the door handle and tried to believe him. 12 hours later, at 8:43 in the evening, Emma Grace Sullivan entered the world. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, tiny but healthy, screaming with impressive lung capacity. Perfect. Maya held her daughter for the first time and wept, not from pain or fear or trauma, from joy, pure, overwhelming joy. This tiny person had survived everything: the poisoning, the stress, the systematic attempt to kill them both. And she was here, real, alive, perfect. Hi, Emma, Maya whispered. I'm your mom. I've been waiting so long to meet you. Emma stopped crying and blinked up at her mother with dark blue eyes. Eyes that would probably change color in a few months, but for now were as deep as the ocean. Detective Kate Morrison came by the next day with a giant stuffed teddy bear and a card signed by the entire police department. How's our favorite survivor? She asked. Exhausted, Maya said, but she was smiling and terrified and so happy. She's beautiful, Kate said, peering at the tiny bundle in Maya's arms. Looks like you. Poor kid, Maya joked weakly. Strong kid, Kate corrected. She's a Sullivan through and through. Fighter genetics. Linda Hayes visited with practical gifts. Diapers, formula, a baby monitor, and a comprehensive guide to infant care written by one of the top pediatricians in Chicago. You're going to need all of this, Linda said. And if you need anything else, anything at all, you call me, day or night. Thank you, Maya said, for everything. If you hadn't investigated when James asked, if you hadn't found the evidence, if you hadn't worked so hard, you'd have found another way. Linda interrupted. You're stronger than you know, Maya. You always have been. James came by every day that week, always with flowers, always with updates about the foundation he'd been helping Maya establish. The paperwork was nearly complete. The Sullivan Henderson Foundation for Domestic Violence Prevention would officially launch in 3 months. We've already had 50 applications for the emergency housing program, James said, sitting in the chair beside Maya's hospital bed while she nursed Emma, and 6 major donors have committed funding. By this time next year, we'll be able to help hundreds of women. Women like me, Maya said quietly. Women who need to know they're not alone, James agreed. That there's a way out, that they can survive and thrive and build new lives. On the 3rd day in the hospital, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived from Maya, hand-delivered. The return address was Logan Correctional Center. It was from Amber. Maya stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Part of her wanted to throw it away unread, but another part, the part that still remembered the cousin who'd played with her at family gatherings when they were children, needed to know what Amber had to say. She opened it while James held Emma, giving her emotional support without hovering. The letter was short. Maya, I won't apologize because I'm not sorry. I meant every action I took. You had everything and I had nothing, and that wasn't fair. But I will say this, I underestimated you. I thought you were weak, broken, easy to destroy. I was wrong. You survived. You won, and I suppose that means something. Your daughter will grow up knowing her mother is a survivor. Make sure she also knows that family can be the most dangerous enemy of all. Trust no one. Amber. Maya folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Then she handed it to James. Burn this. I don't want Emma to ever read it. I don't want Amber's poison anywhere near my daughter. James took the letter. Consider it done. But James, Maya said, I want to do something with the foundation. I want to create a scholarship program for nursing students from low-income families. James looked puzzled. Why nursing specifically? Because Amber's mother was a nurse, Eleanor Wells. She died broken, bitter, feeling like she'd been betrayed by her family. Maybe if she'd had support, resources, a different path, she wouldn't have poisoned her daughter's mind with resentment. Maybe Amber would have turned out differently. You want to honor the woman whose daughter tried to kill you? I want to break the cycle, Maya said. Poverty, resentment, generational trauma. If the Sullivan family had helped Eleanor instead of cutting her out, maybe none of this would have happened. I can't change the past, but I can make sure other families don't follow the same path. James smiled. The Eleanor Wells Memorial Scholarship Program. I'll set it up. Thank you, Maya said. She looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully in James's arms. I want Emma to grow up knowing her family's whole story, the good and the bad, the love and the betrayal. But most of all, I want her to know that broken things can be mended, not by pretending they were never broken, but by acknowledging the cracks and filling them with something stronger. What's stronger than hate? James asked. Maya looked at her daughter. Love, mercy, justice, second chances, all of it together. That's what's stronger. 2 weeks later, Maya was discharged from the hospital with a healthy baby and a comprehensive plan for her new life. She moved into a larger apartment, still secure but more spacious, with a nursery painted in soft yellows and greens. She hired a nanny, not because she needed one, but because she wanted help while she adjusted to motherhood and continued her trauma therapy. The nanny, a kind woman named Margaret who'd raised 4 children of her own, became a surrogate grandmother to Emma. Maya also hired a personal trainer to help her regain the strength the arsenic had stolen, a nutritionist to rebuild her relationship with food, a therapist who specialized in complex trauma. She was building herself back piece by piece, stronger than before. And every day she looked at her daughter and thought, this is why I survived. Not for revenge, not for money, for her, for the future. On Emma's 3-month birthday, Maya threw a small party at her apartment. James came with Isabella, who was enchanted by the tiny baby. Detective Morrison came with her partner. Linda Hayes came with her husband, Margaret the nanny. A few of Maya's old friends who'd slowly started reconnecting after years of Derek's isolation. It was small, intimate, perfect. As they sang happy birthday to a baby who was too young to understand but smiled anyway, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. She'd survived the unsurvivable. She'd faced evil and won. She'd brought life into the world despite someone's best efforts to end it. And in 2 years, when she turned 35, she'd take control of $47 million and use it to save other women from the hell she'd endured. But for now, in this moment, she was just a mother holding her daughter. And that was enough. 2 years passed quickly. Emma grew from a tiny infant into a chattering toddler with her mother's dark hair and her grandfather's determined chin. She loved books, music, and playing with Isabella Henderson, who'd become like a big sister to her. Maya threw herself into the foundation work. The Sullivan Henderson Foundation had grown beyond her wildest expectations. 15 shelter locations across 8 states, 3,000 women and children housed safely, comprehensive legal aid, therapy, job training, and financial literacy programs. The Eleanor Wells Memorial Scholarship had funded 127 nursing students. Many of them were first-generation college students who'd grown up in poverty, just like Eleanor Wells had. They sent Maya letters of gratitude, photos of their graduations, stories of the lives they were building. It was healing for Maya, for the memory of her parents, maybe even in some small way for Aunt Eleanor's tortured legacy. On Maya's 35th birthday, she woke up to Emma jumping on her bed singing an off-key version of Happy Birthday. Margaret had taught her the song, and Emma was proud of her rendition. Mama, Mama, birthday, cake. Maya laughed and pulled her daughter into a hug. Yes, baby, birthday and cake. But first, Mama has to do something important. That afternoon, Maya sat in a conference room at the law offices of Sullivan Trust Management. Her attorneys, the trust administrators, and James Henderson were all present. Today was the day Maya officially took full control of her inheritance. The lead attorney, a woman named Patricia Williams, walked Maya through the documents. As of today, you have complete authority over the principal sum of $47.3 million, plus accumulated interest and investment returns. The current total value of the trust is approximately $62 million. Maya signed paper after paper, her hands steady. This money had nearly destroyed her. It had killed her parents. It had driven her cousin to madness and her husband to murder. But it hadn't won. She had. What would you like to do first? Patricia asked. Maya had thought about this moment for 2 years. I want to donate $30 million to the foundation. Immediately, I want to establish permanent endowments for the scholarship program and the housing program. I want to make sure those programs continue forever, regardless of what happens to me. Patricia nodded, making notes. And the remaining $32 million? $20 million goes into a trust for Emma. She'll receive it when she turns 30, old enough to handle it responsibly, young enough to use it to build the life she wants. And the final $12 million? Maya smiled. $6 million to establish a cancer research fund in memory of Emma Henderson, James's wife. $6 million to establish a family reconciliation program. Therapy and support for families torn apart by money, inheritance, and resentment. I want to make sure what happened to my family doesn't happen to others. Ed James, sitting across the table, looked emotional. Maya, you don't have to. Yes, I do, Maya said firmly. Emma gave me Isabella as a big sister. She gave me you as family. This is how I say thank you. What about you? Patricia asked. What will you live on? The foundation pays me a salary as executive director. I don't need millions. I need purpose. I need to help others. That's what my parents would have wanted. After the meeting, Maya and James walked through Millennium Park with both girls. Emma toddled between them, holding both their hands and squealing with delight. Isabella walked ahead, self-important and proud to be the big kid. Are you happy? James asked Maya. I am, Maya said, and meant it. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy. I have my daughter. I have my work. I have people I trust. That's more than I ever thought I'd have. Your parents would be proud of you. I hope so, Maya said quietly. Think about them every day. Wonder what they'd think of Emma, what they'd think of the foundation, whether they'd forgive me for creating the Eleanor Wells Scholarship. They would, James said with certainty, because they raised someone who understands that mercy is stronger than vengeance, that breaking cycles matters more than maintaining grudges. That evening, Maya's apartment was filled with people celebrating her birthday. The foundation staff, Detective Morrison, Linda Hayes, Margaret. Other survivors Maya had helped through the foundation, women who'd become friends. Emma ran around with her birthday crown on, distributing cake to everyone with Margaret's help. Isabella played hostess, very seriously explaining to everyone that this is Emma's mama's birthday and we have to be nice. At one point, Maya found herself standing by the window, looking out over Chicago. This city had been the site of so much trauma, but it had also been the site of her survival, her rebirth, her transformation from victim to survivor to advocate. Kate Morrison joined her at the window. Penny, for your thoughts? I was thinking about Amber, Maya admitted. She's in prison for the rest of her life. Derek will be eligible for parole in 20 years. And I'm here, free, happy, raising my daughter. It doesn't seem fair somehow that I get all this while they get nothing. They made their choices, Kate said. Every step of the way they had chances to stop, to turn back, to choose differently. They didn't. That's on them, not you. I know, but sometimes I wonder if things could have been different and if my parents had helped Aunt Eleanor, if the family hadn't split over money, if Amber had gotten therapy instead of revenge. You can't save everyone, Maya. You can only save the ones who want to be saved. Amber didn't want redemption. She wanted revenge, and she got exactly what she chose. Maya nodded slowly. I just don't want Emma to grow up thinking money is the most important thing, or that family is disposable, or that revenge is ever the answer. She won't, Kate said, because she has you as an example. You chose mercy over revenge, healing over hatred. That's what she'll learn. The party continued late into the evening. When finally everyone had left and Emma was asleep in her crib, Maya sat in her living room with a photo album Margaret had helped her create. Pictures of her parents from when she was a child, pictures of herself before Derek, pictures of her pregnancy, of Emma's birth, of their life together over the past 2 years. She also had one other photo, one she kept hidden in the back of the album. A photo from a family reunion when she and Amber were 7 years old, playing together in someone's backyard, both laughing, arms around each other. Before the money became more important than family, before resentment poisoned everything, before Amber chose murder over acceptance. I'm sorry, Maya whispered to the photo. I'm sorry it came to this. I'm sorry you couldn't find another way, but I can't let your choices define my life, or Emma's life. We're moving forward, and I hope somehow, wherever you are in that prison cell, you find some kind of peace. She closed the album and put it away. Tomorrow she'd wake up and continue her work. She'd help more survivors. She'd grow the foundation. She'd raise her daughter. She'd build the life her parents had wanted for her. But tonight, on her 35th birthday, she allowed herself to simply exist, to be Maya Sullivan, survivor, mother, advocate, free. The trust was hers now, but it didn't own her. She owned her life, finally, completely, fully, and that was the real inheritance worth fighting for. 5 years after Maya took control of the Sullivan Trust, the foundation held its annual gala at the Chicago Hilton. The ballroom was filled with donors, survivors, advocates, and supporters. The theme of the evening was breaking cycles, building futures. Maya stood backstage, adjusting her dress and trying to calm her nerves. She'd given dozens of speeches over the years, but this one felt different, special. Today marked the Foundation's 7th anniversary. 7 years of saving lives. 7 years of proving that survival was possible. Emma, now almost 7 years old herself, stood beside her mother wearing a matching blue dress and practicing her smile in the mirror. She'd insisted on coming to the gala, wanting to see Mama's important speech. "Nervous?" James asked, walking over with Isabella, who was now 10, and looked very grown up in her formal dress. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "I'm announcing something big tonight, something I've been working on for months." "What is it?" "You'll see," Maya said with a smile. "But I wanted to thank you first, for everything. For believing me when no one else did. For investigating. For supporting the Foundation. For being family when I had none." James hugged her carefully, mindful of her dress. "You've built something remarkable, Maya. Your parents would be so proud." "Our parents," Maya corrected gently. "Emma and Emma. We're honoring both of them tonight." The MC announced Maya's introduction. She took a deep breath, squeezed Emma's hand, and walked onto the stage. The audience erupted in applause. Maya looked out over the crowd and saw faces she recognized. Survivors she'd helped. Donors who'd believed in the mission. Staff members who worked tirelessly every day. Detective Morrison, Linda Hayes, Margaret. People who'd become family. "Thank you," Maya said into the microphone. "Thank you all for being here, for believing in this work, for understanding that domestic violence isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a societal failure. And together we're changing that." She clicked to her first slide. Statistics about the Foundation's impact. 4,000 survivors housed, 15 shelters, comprehensive support programs, legal victories, lives saved. "These numbers represent real people," Maya said. "Real women and men and children who were trapped in situations that seemed hopeless, who thought they'd never escape, who believed the lies their abusers told them. We gave them hope, resources, support, and most importantly, we believed them." She clicked to the next slide. Photos of survivors with their children, in their new homes, at their graduations, at their weddings, thriving, not just surviving, but truly living. "7 years ago, I was one of these women," Maya said. "I was being systematically poisoned by my husband and my cousin, who'd spent 13 years planning my murder for an inheritance they believed they deserved. They killed my parents. They almost killed me and my daughter." Emma sat in the front row, holding James's hand, watching her mother with wide eyes. "But I survived," Maya continued, "because people refused to look away, because a CEO noticed bruises and chose to investigate, because a private investigator dug deeper, because a detective believed me, because people who barely knew me decided my life was worth saving." She paused, emotion thick in her throat. "That's what we do here. We see people when they're invisible. We believe them when no one else does. We provide the resources they need to save themselves. Because here's the truth about domestic violence. The victim is always the hero of the story, always. They're the ones who survive, who endure, who fight every single day. We just provide the tools." The audience applauded. Maya waited for silence before continuing. "Tonight, I'm announcing a major expansion of our work. The Sullivan Henderson Foundation is partnering with 15 other domestic violence organizations across the country to create a national network. Survivors will be able to access support services in any state. We're creating a database of safe housing, legal resources, therapy programs, and job training. We're making it impossible for survivors to fall through the cracks." More applause. Maya smiled. "But there's something else," she said, "something personal. Many of you know that my husband and my cousin were convicted of attempted murder and conspiracy. They're both in prison. They'll both die in prison. And for years, I struggled with what that meant. Was I supposed to feel vindicated, angry, satisfied?" She looked at Emma. "I don't feel any of those things. I feel sad. Sad that people I love chose hate over healing. Sad that money became more important than humanity. Sad that my daughter will grow up knowing her father is a murderer and her cousin orchestrated it all. The room was silent now, everyone listening. But here's what I've learned, Maya said. You can't change the past. You can only change what comes next. My cousin Amber believed she deserved half of my parents' money because her mother was cut out of the family fortune 15 years ago. She wasn't wrong that her mother deserved better. She was wrong about how to fix it. Maya clicked to the next slide, a photo of two young women smiling, arms around each other. Her mother Patricia and her aunt Eleanor. These were two sisters who loved each other once, Maya said, before money and pride and resentment tore them apart, before that rift poisoned the next generation, before my cousin decided murder was the answer to inherited pain. She clicked again, a photo of a building with a sign, the Eleanor Wells Family Reconciliation Center. This opens next month, Maya said. It's a place where families torn apart by inheritance disputes, financial disagreements, and generational trauma can get counseling, mediation, and support. Because Amber was right about one thing, my Aunt Eleanor deserved better. She deserved help, support, resources. Instead, she got cut off, and that bitterness destroyed two generations. Maya's voice strengthened. We can't save my Aunt Eleanor. We can't save Amber, but we can save other families. We can provide the support they need before resentment turns to hatred, before hatred turns to violence. We can break the cycle. The applause this time was thunderous. Maya saw people crying, nodding, understanding. Amber turned her mother's pain into murder, Maya said. I'm turning it into mercy. That's the choice we all have, every day, in every situation. We can choose revenge, or we can choose redemption. We can hold on to grudges, or we can build bridges. We can pass pain to the next generation, or we can heal it. She looked directly at Emma. My daughter will grow up knowing her family's whole story, the good and the bad, the love and the betrayal, the mercy and the justice. And she'll know that broken things can be mended, not by pretending they were never broken, but by acknowledging the cracks and filling them with something stronger. Maya's final slide was a photo of Emma holding Maya's hand, both of them smiling at the camera. This is my legacy, Maya said. Not the money, not the trust, not the foundation, her, and the lessons she'll carry forward. That survival is possible, that mercy is powerful, that cycles can be broken, that we get to choose what we pass on to the next generation. She paused. Amber wanted revenge and got a prison cell. Derek wanted money and got 25 years. I wanted justice and got my daughter. I got my life. I got the chance to help thousands of other survivors find their lives too. Maya smiled at the audience. That's the real inheritance. Not $47 million, not a trust fund, not wealth or status or power. It's the choice to transform pain into purpose, trauma into triumph, survival into service. Thank you all for being part of this journey. Thank you for believing that broken things can be whole again. Thank you for seeing the invisible, for believing the unbelievable, for saving lives. She stepped back from the podium. Now let's get to work. We have more lives to save. The standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Emma ran up onto the stage and hugged her mother's legs. Maya picked her up, holding her daughter close, and looked out over the crowd of people who'd become her family. In the back of the room, Detective Kate Morrison wiped her eyes. Beside her, Linda Hayes was openly crying. James Henderson stood with Isabella, both of them applauding, both of them understanding what Maya had really said tonight. She'd won. Not because Amber and Derek were in prison. Not because she had money or power or success. She'd won because she'd chosen light over darkness, healing over hatred, future over past, and that was the victory that mattered. After the gala, Maya took Emma home and tucked her into bed. Emma's room was filled with books, art supplies, and photos of people who loved her. Margaret, James and Isabella, the foundation staff, Detective Morrison, a whole community of people who'd wrapped themselves around this little girl and promised to keep her safe. Mama, Emma said sleepily, your speech was really long. Maya laughed. I know, baby. Sorry about that. But I like the part about broken things. Miss Margaret says I'm good at fixing broken things, like when I helped her tape her book back together. You are very good at that, Maya agreed. Was I broken? Emma asked. When I was in your tummy and the bad medicine was making you sick? Maya stroked her daughter's hair. You were never broken, sweetheart. You were always perfect. You just had to fight really hard to be born. And you did. You fought and you won. Like you? Like me, Maya confirmed. We're both fighters. Sullivan women always are. Emma yawned. Tell me about Grandma and Grandpa Sullivan. Maya did. She told Emma about her parents' work as surgeons, about how they'd saved countless lives, about how they'd created the trust to continue helping people even after they were gone. She told the sanitized version, appropriate for a 7-year-old. The full story would come later when Emma was old enough to understand. They sound nice, Emma said. They were, Maya said. They would have loved you so much. Do you think they can see me from heaven? I think so, Maya said. I think they're very proud of both of us. Emma fell asleep a few minutes later, one hand clutching her stuffed elephant, the other holding Maya's hand. Maya sat in the chair beside the bed for a long time, just watching her daughter breathe. This child had survived the unsurvivable, had been wanted dead before she was even born, had been poisoned in utero, had fought her way into life against all odds. And now she slept peacefully in a room filled with love, in a home filled with safety, in a life filled with possibility. That was Maya's real triumph, not the foundation, not the awards, not the recognition or the money or the public vindication. It was this, a sleeping child who'd never know hunger or fear or the kind of desperate hopelessness that turned people into monsters. Emma would grow up knowing that the world had people who refused to look away, who believed survivors, who fought for justice, who transformed pain into purpose. And maybe, just maybe, she'd carry that forward into her own life, breaking more cycles, healing more wounds, refusing to let money or pride or resentment poison what mattered most. Family, love, mercy, justice, the real inheritance. Maya finally stood and walked to the window. Chicago glittered below, a city of millions of stories, millions of secrets, millions of people fighting their own battles. Somewhere in that city, there were women being abused right now. Women trapped in situations that seemed hopeless. Women who thought they'd never escape. Tomorrow, Maya would wake up and continue the work of helping them, showing them that escape was possible, that survival was achievable, that life after trauma could be beautiful. But tonight, she allowed herself to simply be grateful. For Emma, for James and Isabella, for Kate and Linda and Margaret, for everyone who'd refused to let her story end in tragedy, for the fact that she was alive, free, whole, and determined to make sure every survivor knew they could be too. Maya turned away from the window and walked to her bedroom. On her nightstand was a photo of her parents, young and happy, before tragedy struck. She picked it up and whispered, I did it. I took your money and turned it into hope. I broke the cycle. I saved Emma. I saved myself. And I'm saving others every day. I hope that makes you proud. She set the photo down gently and climbed into bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new survivors to help, new battles to fight. But tonight, Maya Sullivan slept peacefully. Because she'd learned the most important truth of all, survival isn't about the absence of scars. It's about what you build from the broken pieces. And Maya had built something beautiful. A foundation, a family, a future, and a daughter who would carry forward the legacy of mercy, justice, and unbreakable strength. That was the real inheritance, and it was worth more than $47 million could ever buy.